Our first speaker today is Dr. Gus Rose. Gus is the manager of sheep genetics. He grew up in southwest Australia. Is that southwestern? Southwestern Australia. Okay, good. And has come to us via, I guess, DPIWA, a Master in Ag Ecos with a PhD, as well as managing a sustainable sheep and goat production in Europe. Gus has been the manager of sheep genetics since August 2019, and today Gus is here to talk about how sheep genetics are delivering better breeding values. Please welcome Dr. Gus Rose.
Thanks, Luke. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? And thanks for calling me doctor. It's not necessary, but very flattering. Welcome to Leading Breeder 2021. It's great to see people in a room together, which we haven't seen for a while. And thank you for those that have travelled a long way to get here. And also to those who are in Adelaide, it's great that you could also make it there. And it's also great that we can have people online, so we can mix a little bit of online and live, so that's really good. Before we get into too much of the detail, we've had some changes in our team over the last few months, which I'll highlight. So we're down to about 6 members of sheep genetics at the moment, including myself, Stephen, Emma, Nicole, Ermias and Fiona. So unfortunately, James left us last month, and we're really grateful to have James for a few years, and he was really well regarded in the industry. And we'll miss his enthusiasm and his talent to get stuff done. And now that we're down to 6, it's been a really good effort from particularly Emma, especially for Leading Breeder, to get everything organised. She's put a lot of effort in, with support from the rest of the team. But it's been quite a hard event to organise, because when we started to organise it, COVID was still quite a serious thing which could have impacted the event. But to have it in multiple locations and then to stream online has been really good effort to get it up and going. The good news is that we can announce a new member of a team who is going to start next month, Gabrielle Sharing. So she'll replace James in the Land Plan Development Officer role, and she's from Central New South Wales. She's done a Bachelor of Animal and Veterinary Bioscience, and she's been working on project management in animal health and food safety. So she has some really important skills which she can bring to the team, and so we're really excited to have Gabby starting next month. There's been some other changes to the MLA genetics team. I didn't mention Peter before because she's still with us, luckily, but unfortunately not in my team, but in the overall genetics team, which is good. So we've got Hamish, who's the program manager, and Karis. I didn't get a photo of her. She promised me a photo of her literally going off into the sunset, but she didn't quite get that to me yesterday. But unfortunately, she's finishing tomorrow. But fortunately, we've got Peter to move into that role, which is really, really great for the team. The other change is that Claire is having a baby, so she'll be away for about a year. But fortunately, we've got Keely, who's here. Do you want to wave and say hello? Who will be filling in for Karis in that National Adoption Manager role for genetics. So she's still within the adoption team, but moving to genetics, so we'll be working a lot more with her. And so we're still trying to fill some roles, so we'll keep you updated for that. But I think we're doing a pretty good job at keeping things going now that we've had a bit of a shuffle and a loss of a few team members. So 2020 was a pretty ordinary year for some. We had a fair bit going on, which we didn't expect, including COVID. So it was a big learning curve for us in terms of how we can work with you throughout the year. And it was exacerbated a little bit by the fact that we still had more data coming in and more clients joining sheep genetics. And also we have had a big increase in genomics, people using genomics, and also the labs which you can use for genomics. So there's been a few challenges from last year, which I think we worked through pretty well. But even still, we're getting a lot more people joining sheep genetics, and I think this is a really positive message, because since 2017-18, we've had about 80 more flocks join, or 100 flocks, sorry, which is really good. And since 2016, it's been about 80,000 more billed animals or records coming into the system per year. So these things mean that there's more clients, more people to work with, more data to work with, which increases the work required from sheep genetics and also AgBoo to get the analysis done. Our Australian breeders, I like this to show that we truly are a national sheep genetic evaluation. So we have breeders all across Australia's major sheep producing areas, which is really good. I haven't got New Zealand on there or the other international clients, but I think the biggest challenge for us last year was that we were stuck at that red dot up on the hill. So it was really difficult for us to get out and talk to you and work with you. So we're really hoping that this year we can get out and get more feedback from you and work with you about how we can work together better. So given that we were at that red dot last year, we had to do things a little bit differently. And it was a big learning curve in terms of talking to you online. We did a lot of online stuff. And our first attempt was good, but we realised that we had a lot of room to improve because online is very different to getting out and talking like this. So we did have a lot of different events online over the year, and I think we got a lot better at doing it. And the good thing about COVID is that online is something which we'll keep doing to complement getting out and about. So I think it was a good year for us to understand how we can do that better and how we can complement getting out and about with talking to you online, depending on the event. So some really good events which happened last year were the online mate cell training. So we trained up to, I think, about 40 new people to use mate cell, which was really good. And a new initiative we have for new members, because you can see that we're getting lots of new members, is that new members workshop. So that's with small groups of people who have just started sheep genetics, and it's about getting them to understand the system, how they can submit data better and work better with us. So they've been really successful, and we're going to keep doing those alongside getting out and about this year. For genomics, you'll see some stats coming up later in the day, but it's really going off in terms of people using genomics. And the good thing is that we've got 6 labs you can use, which is really positive for you. But in terms of getting all those labs or the data from 6 different people, we've had a bit of work to get everything working smoothly. And we've also put more resources in the AgBoo to make sure that we can work with the labs and then they can work with their clients to make sure that everything works in terms of getting parentage done and also getting genotypes into the analysis. So the best way to get genomics done is to contact one of these 6 labs, and you can find those labs on our website under the Service Providers tab. And so that's the best way to get into genomics. So 2020 we had some really important enhancements, and this year is going to be the same. There's going to be some improvements to the analysis. The major one is that we're going to start using our new database, and then we've got some other improvements to our analysis, and we've got improvements to the reproduction analysis, which is really important considering we want to rebuild Australia's sheep flock, and that's a really good way of doing it, is by having improved reproduction. So the enhancements will happen between May and June. We're not sure of the date yet because we want to test a few things, including how we're going to use that new database. And of course, we're going to have online seminars with everybody to understand the differences and the changes that are going to happen. And if there's individuals who have big changes in their breeding values, for example, we'll also do our best to get in contact with you to talk through those changes before they actually happen, so it doesn't come unexpected. The first big change, and Peter's going to talk about that later, so if you have any questions, save them for her. I'll leave the hard questions for Peter to do. But in the background, we've been working on getting all our databases together into one spot. And so that's ready to go, but we're not actually using it yet. So the next stage is actually use that data from the new database. And that's going to perhaps have big changes, and that's the biggest thing we need to test at the moment. Because currently, your data comes in through either LandPlan or Moreno Select, but it's all going to come through in a similar way. So we'll keep you updated. Peter will give you an update about that later. Another improvement, which AgBoo's been working hard on with Philip and Vincent and co, they've been working on improving the analysis to deal with the increase in genotypes we have. And the funny thing is that I did this slide last week, and then Daniel said yesterday, well, it's up to 125,000. So daily, the number of genotypes using analysis is going up. So that makes it hard, because you can imagine all those animals which have genotypes, and the genotypes are 50,000 long, how we can get that and use that in analysis is it's got a big computational demand. So we're going from the single-step G-BLUP to T-BLUP, which is something which has happened in other species which have had the same problem. So it's best practice. And you won't see much difference because of this, but AGBU will, because it's going to make their life easier, because it's going to be a lot faster and easier to do the analysis. The next exciting change, and Andrew Swan's going to talk about this more in detail later, is that the research breeding values for conception, litter size, and new rearing ability are going to become ASBVs, which means that you can use them across flocks. And this is quite a good change and quite rapid, because in 2019 and 2020, for Moreno and Maternal, they were released as research breeding values. So it's been turned around quite quickly. And the reason why we're excited about using this, because it's a lot better than using number of lambs weaned to use these 3 traits. And eventually we want to phase out number of lambs weaned. The reason we can't do that yet is because we're still using number of lambs weaned in our indexes. So we're going to report both side to side until we can update indexes to have those new traits in them. Andrew's going to talk about that a bit more later. And again, for those changes, we're planning to have online workshops to work with breeders who will experience changes in these. And the last enhancement is about lambing knees, which is going to have an improved analysis, so it's going to have better breeding values for that trait. But that's, again, we'll give you more information about that closer to the enhancements. So 2020 was a pretty big year. A lot of the things we were doing you probably didn't notice, like getting the databases together, which was a lot of work because you've got 3 different databases, 3 different ways of doing things, and now we had to agree on one way of doing it. So now it's time to start using that. You would have noticed our new website, search website. That's on the list to upgrade as well. And there's a nice project about data quality, which we want to start testing with you as well. And then we're going to have some updates to indexes next year as well, which we have to work on from now on. So last year we had the release of our new search site, and we were really happy that we got this out because it's a really improved product. It's a lot easier for us to maintain, and it was very much a minimal product which we gave to you, and it's always the case that we wanted to build on that to give improvements to the product. So based on your feedback, we got a lot of feedback from you, which was really good because it helped us to prioritise what we want to do in the future. We've already made improvements in December last year, and this year we've already started getting a project together to have a 3rd release of the search site, which will have improvements in a lot of things that you gave us as your priorities, which you wanted to see for our search site. And the main 2 are that you'll be able to see more traits and export more traits. And also we're going to have a more compact view for you. So that means more traits on the screen, more animals on the screen, because at the moment it was very much set up for your clients, commercial people, to see less information but more targeted. But as breeders, you want to see more information about your animals and other people's animals so that you can use that information better. So based on that feedback, we're going to do those new improvements to the website, plus more. So more information about that is also on our website. The other project that Sarita and Daniel have been working on at AGBU is a data quality index. And you might remember blue, red and green dot rams or the gold, silver, bronze flocks. So this new data quality index is going to incorporate bits of that into a new index which will help you improve your data quality in the data that you send in to us. And so it's going to include quantity, quality and timeliness. So how much data you give us, how good that data is, and how quickly you give it to us, the data. So we're up to a point where we're going to get ready to create reports which we can start testing with you. And we want to start testing this year, but the emphasis is on giving it to you privately, so we're not going to publicly report this until you've seen it, because we want to get feedback from you about how you think you might be able to use the data, the information, what more information you might need, and get feedback from you on how we can improve the reporting. And then in the future, we'll think about if, when and how we can start reporting that publicly for people to use that information. But we do understand that that's another bit of information. You've got breeding values, you've got accuracies, then you've got this data quality index, which you have to learn about and teach to your clients. So it's very much steady as we go, work out how we can improve it and get adoption into it. And most importantly, how you can improve your data quality. Have you got a question, Jock? Do we do questions at the end? Or?
Do you mind saving it, Jock, just to...
Yeah.
Won't be long.
So we really want to start testing that with people, for example, at regional forums and other events to get that going. Last year when we released the search site, a lot of people said, oh, that looks nice, but your old information site looks crap. So we listened to you again and said, okay, how can we make the site, and this is not the search site, but where you go to get information about sheep genetics, about what we do, about how to record data, all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be released within the month, we're hoping. And it's got, importantly, it's got easy ways to get to the search site to look for animals, but it's also we've made it a lot easier to navigate to find information. So the old site's been going on for a while, and when we had new information, it's almost like we tacked it on, and it became really hard to find information, and there was inconsistencies on the site. So we've got all that information, we've condensed it down to make it easier for you to find what you need and other commercial people who want to come to the site. So keep an eye out for that, that's coming soon as well. Another big project, which is ongoing, Peter's still going to talk about this later, is the database redevelopment. And we're going to make it easier and more flexible in how you submit data and to get instant feedback in terms of validation for when you're submitting data. And also we're going to work on being more flexible to report information back to you. Because at the moment, it's an email with PDFs and a little bit of a dashboard, but it's not very flexible, so we want to improve that. And so that's one of the two of the big projects which we're working on this year. So Peter will talk about that later. Some index changes for 2022. So last year we had an index review where we spoke to around 60 of you to get feedback about indexes and how we can improve them in the future. And based on that, we've made our priorities for this year, and we've made a bit more of a bigger plan for the future as well. But the priorities for this year to get done are to have new Moreno indexes, and part of that we need to update the models and the assumptions behind the Moreno indexes. And we want to improve those new reproduction traits, conception, litter size, and neurorenewability, because we want to get those in instead of number of lambs weaned. We want to incorporate wrinkle and dags into indexes and resilience into indexes. So that could be condition score, fat or muscle, or something like that. So these are the changes we're expecting to do this year for Merinos. We also want to update terminal indexes, so to include birth weight into those. And also for maternal indexes, we're going to update them. So they won't be totally new, but we'll be updating the current indexes. And also to include those 3 reproduction traits, conception, litter size, and neurorenewability. So we can transition people to the 3 better traits. Something else we're going to release again this year, because we like releasing new things, is the new quality assurance manual, which is slightly outdated. I think it's 2005 was when it was last updated. So it's due for a bit of a change, a bit of a facelift. And this is where we're going to put all the information about how you can submit data to us, information about why genetics is important, tips about grouping, linkage, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to make it easier for you to understand how you're meant to submit data to us. And we're hoping to have this out within the next 6 months. Another thing which a lot of you ask about is genetic defects. And we've started a project with Sydney University, who have some money to set up a national database for livestock. And so this includes cows, dogs, cats, and sheep. And because a lot of people ring us and we're not vets, so we can't really understand or give you advice about what you're actually seeing on the farm. So this is set up by vets. They're going to set up an easier way of collecting the information to understand what you're actually seeing on the farm and to collect that information, so those phenotypes effectively. And then we can use that information to see whether those defects are important, and then work with them in terms of collecting it from you and then reporting it back. And one of the issues with these defects is often that people don't want to admit they've got it. And so a big part of this is going to be how we can keep it anonymous so that we can get the information from you and back to you so you can use that to make sure it doesn't happen in the future. So this year it's really much working with them to to give feedback about what we see and what's important in terms of sheep, and then how they can set that up in the future. And finally, we're hoping that we can get out and about more in 2021. So we've got our regional forums, which we're organising. We've got workshops with service providers that we're planning to do. But we did learn a lot from doing online. So we really want to do online with getting out and talking to you one-on-one and in groups. So as part of that strategy, we're going to combine a little bit of both. So regional forums, keep an eye out for those near you. We haven't confirmed all the dates yet, but keep looking at the monthly updates, which you always ignore and put into the junk. But make sure you open them to see what's happening for sheep genetics and where we might be coming near you. And we've planned a service provider workshop on the 4th and 5th of May. And we're also including the genomics labs in that, which I think is a very positive move to understand, so they can understand a lot more about what we're doing at Sheep Genetics. And we'll also have online workshops such as for the enhancements to get information quickly to you, which doesn't necessarily mean we have to get together face to face. And that's all I had. Luke, if there's any questions.
So thanks. Thanks, Gus. Got the sound. So look, just while we've got this here, I just realised that there's some people viewing online on YouTube. We aren't monitoring the YouTube chat function. It's not a source of questions. So could I ask you please use the Slido platform there, and we'll take some questions from the room as well. So what we'll start with, I guess we'll just work at the moment from the top to the bottom, Gus. We've got plenty of time for questions. So the question being, how will the new data quality index be displayed and whereabouts?
So initially we're thinking of including it in the RUG reports, the ramping up genetic gain, because it does complement a lot of that information. And so we're working to update it so that you can get it to you a lot easier. And so we're going to trial different ways of reporting it to you, and that's very much what we want to do in terms of this year to work together with you to work out how. So in the future, how we might report that might look very different to how we do it this year, because we do want to improve how we report everything to you to make it more flexible. So, and that will also depend if, how and when we do want to report it publicly, because that's another thing which you really need to understand what it is.
Okay, so I think that top one is, I might use some power from the chair and say that I think you addressed that.
Yep.
So we might take that one off the board, but thank you for that question.
Yep.
Jock, we'll take a question here.
Thanks, mate. Gus, just with the data quality...
Does he need a microphone? Or?
I'll repeat it, yep.
Gus, with the data quality index, does that include the amount of genomic information that goes into, or is it just raw data?
No. I might give that to Sarita to answer, since we've got the person who did the work here. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Jock. Yeah, the amount of genomic information is obviously an important component for linkage across flocks. So yes, it is one of the metrics that we use to take into account the quality for the data. Yeah.
At scale, is the genomic information any more, like give you an overall better data rating or quality rating than raw data, or is it not?
We take into consideration for each breed type how much variation there is across the different flocks, and we weight the metrics accordingly. So it does weight. It is important, but the raw phenotypes is also an important component of it as well. So yeah.
Okay, so the next question we're going to give you, Gus, is the definition of genetic defects. So disease issues, or are we talking structural faults?
No, it's more disease issues. So it's recessive effects or gene effects, which we're working on. And as part of that project, we're going to work out what are the priorities in terms of sheep, because we do have some which we're reporting now, but there still needs to be some work done in terms of how effective they are across all the different breeds. So as part of that project, and that's the reason why I want to work with people within the industry like us to make sure that they're doing the things which are relevant.
So a bit of a hypothetical, if I'm a sheep breeder who suddenly has a line of sheep with a defect, is the best port of call to contact the sheep genetics team?
Yeah, and that's also part of working out how we can get that information into. But for now, it's definitely worth contacting us, and then we can help get that up and going. Because people are contacting us now with questions, and what we want to do is try and formalise that through having one location for all this information, because then you can use it for research, you can use it, AgBoo can start using it to help complement the information they've got already, all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely worth ringing us.
Excellent.
Yep.
Okay, so next question, we'll talk about the Moreno Indexes. So are we assuming here that there's a new missing after completely? So are the Moreno Indexes going to be completely new or add to the existing indexes?
Yep.
We'll take that as the first part of the question. I don't know if we can really answer the second part
No.
today.
No. But we are planning to update them completely. They could be very similar to the current indexes, but when we're putting new traits in, it also means that you're going to have different looking indexes as well. And so as part of the review, we looked at, especially for Merinos are run in a lot of different environments and run in a lot of different ways. So it's going to be really important to balance having a few good indexes for the industry to benchmark against all the different ways that people want to use Merino. So it's also important to know that we're going to include the industry more because we've had the initial part of the review, but we want to make sure that the indexes that we release next year are relevant and will be used. So the weightings, that's something we're working on still.
Okay, and the last question we've got up here, we still have plenty of time, so if you do have additional questions online or here, please feel free to text them through. So we're talking the website here.
Yep.
So how did feedback on the search site with your user base after it was launched, and we might separate that into seed stock feedback versus commercial users feedback as well?
Oh, so you want to know about the feedback we got? Yeah. So we got a lot of feedback after we launched the site. I think we recorded over 130 bits of feedback from people, which was really useful for us to prioritise what people liked and what people wanted to improve from the site. So in terms of commercial feedback, Peter, I think most of it was from breeders, and then a few commercial producers as well. But I think that answers that question, does it? Yep.
So in terms of the nature of that ad, obviously it just repeating helped prioritise sort of what features went into the upgrade that you put in December and then future upgrades as well. So it's great to see that we're not just putting something out as a finished product, we're continually updating and improving, which is one of the definitions of innovation, one might say.
And alongside the new site, we're updating the database. So that will also improve the performance of the site as well. And also, there's a lot of features in the site which depend on the database. So it's about balancing getting all the data together and using that efficiently with the new search site and getting data in and out. So it's big, because we're working on a lot of things at the same time to get it working. Yep.
Yeah, I think for me that was definitely one of the themes of the presentation, was just how much work is going on within the team. I think it's very impressive that there's that much exciting stuff happening for the sheep industry. And tools to help us there. We'll take a question from here. If you just wait for the microphone, please.
Just going back to the genetic defects issue. I'm just wondering whether or not the work with Sydney University will then also, and obviously the analysis done with AgBoo, will actually investigate the heritability of these types of things, because certainly there are three really common things that I would consider genetic defects being probably genetic: cryptorchids, entropion, jaw defects over undershot jaws, that when you look through the literature, there isn't a lot of strong data to talk about whether it is genetic or how it may be inherited if it is. So clearly those sorts of things, it would be excellent to get some genetic analysis to determine how it is inherited and whether then you can apply more than just, we'll just cull this particular one, whether we start getting gene tests for them and so forth.
Yeah. Thanks, Deb. That's a good point. And before we can do anything, we need to have the phenotypes to be able to start testing, And I guess you're talking about eventually you could have breeding values for those defects instead of having a single gene test, which is also something which we can investigate. But at the moment, it's really about working out what we have already and then making sure that the people who are working in that area can have access to that information as it comes in so that we can...
They already do at Sydney Uni, and we've worked with Daniel Royce, and unfortunately Sydney Uni haven't come through with any results in some years.
Yeah.
So hopefully the relationship with sheep genetics might push that along a bit more.
Yeah. So in case those that didn't hear, Debbie was just saying that there has been work done in the past, and hopefully that having sheep genetics working with Sydney Uni will help get a better flow of data. And we want data to go both ways as well, right? So information, so it's very important. Good point.
Okay, any more questions, guys, online or here? All right, so ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Gus. Thanks, Gus.